Welcome to the High Achievers Podcast, where we host extraordinary individuals who are disrupting and transforming the way we do business and the way we lead ourselves and others. Now, our today's guest is someone who prides herself with best practice, not only in practicing law, which is her business, but also in the way she leads herself and her team. But Trish wasn't always like that. Her story will inspire many stay-at-home moms and dads and will prove to be a wonderful inspiration that creating both a fulfilling family life and a successful business is very possible with the right mindset. Now, Trish took her private law practice from strength to strength. And in the last 7 years, she tripled it in size and isn't planning to stop there. Now, please help me welcome an extraordinary woman, Trish Amor-Davy. Trish, welcome.
Hello, it's so nice to be here and it's nice to see you in person. How fabulous. Thanks for having me.
It really is. Thank you so much for being with us, Trish. Trish, if I was to start this conversation with a little bit of an unusual question and take you back, all the way back to high school, what was Trish like? Where would I find you if we wanted to take classes together? What were you interested in?
Oh my gosh, if you met me in high school, I was extremely different to where I am now. When I was in high school, I was destined to be a fashion designer. The classes I took were arty. I actually took art, I took art history, and I took sewing. And you would have actually found me in the sewing room at lunchtime making clothes, or in the art room painting or drawing. I was very artistic, which is quite different to where I am now.
Absolutely. I mean, you run a very successful law practice. So I wonder, what happened? What got you to where you are today?
Okay, so it's a bit of a story, so bear with me. So when I was very young, I was fortunate enough to meet a very beautiful man named Jason, who is now my husband. And we got together when I was 19 and he was 21. And within 6 weeks, we decided we should get engaged because you make big decisions when you're 19. And then 6 weeks later, we decided we should have a child. And so that is what we did. And
it's a High Achievers podcast, right? Fantastic.
And smash it. So within 3 months of us starting to date and us getting engaged, we were now pregnant. And I didn't realize it was going to happen so quickly, but I had this crazy idea and it worked. And so for the first couple of years, I was a stay-at-home mum. I truly, in hindsight, I knew nothing. I thought I knew everything about being a mum, but that was my goal. I was a stay-at-home mum and I enjoyed raising my daughter and supporting my now husband. And my brother-in-law used to always say to me, you should go to university and do some studies because you've got some downtime and you've got a brilliant brain. You should just do something with it. And so every year he would send me the university prospectus, which had all of the courses in for the upcoming year. And it would arrive in the mail, he would show up, he would ask me about what I wanted to do, and I would always say to him, I'm not interested, I'm too busy being a mum. And year after year this would happen. And then I had my second child, and at this point she was about 4 months old, and the prospectus arrived. And by this stage I was getting a little bit annoyed. And my brother-in-law Darren showed up and he said, let's go through the prospectus. Is there anything you're interested in? And I said, for goodness sake, will you stop sending me this book? I am not interested in going to university. I have no place there. Stop sending me the book. And he said, well, why don't you just have a look at the book? And I said, okay, if I have a look at this book and I apply for something and I don't get in, will you leave me alone? And he said, okay, deal. And I said, all right, what is the hardest course to get into? And he said, probably medicine, but they don't do medicine at the university I was looking at. So I was looking at Victoria University in Wellington, and that was an hour from where I lived. He said, probably medicine, but they don't do it at Victoria. And I said, okay, what's the second hardest to get into? And he said, that would probably be law. And I said, okay, if I apply to do law and they don't let me in, will you leave me alone? And he said, yep, okay. And I said, all right, let's apply. And just to do the application, you almost needed a degree to fill in the application form. So we go through, we fill out the form, and I'm literally at this point doing it to, in my own stubborn mind, prove a point, leave me alone and let me be just being a mum and looking after my kids. He and the universe had different plans for me. So we fill out this form, and I remember he said, to get in, you normally need to be a top student at high school. And I thought, excellent, because I wasn't. I went right through high school, but I was basically a high school dropout because I got into what we called seventh form, which is the highest level at high school, and I didn't even show up to do the exams. So I thought, okay, I don't have the grades. They're probably going to say no. He said, you need to be a top student, you need an A bursary, and if you don't have that, you could enter as an adult student. If you've got life experience, that would mean you'd be able to do the course. And there is another criteria, and if you are a Maori student, you could enter under that criteria. And so I thought, okay, well, there's two areas that I could at least put an application in under. I was over 20, I had a little bit of life experience, but nothing in the law, and I was a Maori student. So I sent in my application, and I couldn't believe it. I got a response, and they said, we would like to give you an interview. You have to come along and have an interview weekend. And I thought, oh, okay. And I'm still trying to prove my point, but by this stage, I'm thinking, oh my goodness, maybe I could do this. And I went along and I kind of argued my way in, probably not argued my way in, but talked my way in. And when I got there and I met all these amazing potential students that were going to do the course, and I heard what it was actually about. And I was literally at this stage just trying to get into the entry-level law paper. When I got there, by the end of the weekend, I was kind of into the idea of going to university. And I remember saying to them when I had my conversation, if you let me in, I will not leave unless I've got the piece of paper at the end. I will do this and I will be amazing. And would you believe it? They let me in. And the rest I did have to study really hard. I did have to get the grades. I did have to pass. But it was a very unusual way to get into law. And I can even remember it was the most ridiculous, in hindsight, time to be starting a law degree, because at this stage I had a almost 4-year-old and I had a brand new little baby, and my middle child was about 6 or 7 months old when I actually started. And so what I would do in that first year is I would bundle the kids into the car. I would drive into Wellington, which was an hour's drive. I would drop my children off at my sister's, who lived close to the university, and she also had a small baby. I would breastfeed my daughter. I would drive to class. I would come back to my sister's house and breastfeed her again. I would drive back to the university and do my tutorials, and then I would drive back to my sister's and pick up my children, and we would drive home. And that's what I did for the first year. And I think it was one of those things that by the time I got into the university system, I decided if I'm here for a reason, and I'm not leaving unless I get that piece of paper. And it was actually quite it was a huge commitment, but it was a huge sacrifice to be doing that, because in my mind, I just wanted to be a mum, and I just wanted to hang out with these gorgeous little children and raise them. And I realized if I'm going to be away from them, this is a sacrifice to me. I'm going to have to pay someone to look after my children. And the first year I was fortunate because my sister did it, but beyond that, I had to pay for childcare. And I remember thinking, I feel like I'm missing out on time with them. They're missing out on time with me. And the only way I'm leaving this university is with that piece of paper at the end, because it has to be a gain for all of us. We have to all gain something from this. So I looked at it as a short-term sacrifice for a long-term gain, and the rest is history. Then I did my degree, and I was always determined once I got that degree. There's a lot of areas you can go with a law degree. You could be in the government, you could do policy, you could do all sorts. But I always wanted to work in private practice. I had a vision from word go that if I did get the degree and I became a lawyer, I would have my own practice. And here I am. So quite different to the girl at college who used to hang around the sewing room and make cute little dresses and hang around in the art classes and paint and stuff. Very different to where I'm at now.
What an inspirational story, especially for all our women listeners, because especially in our today's society, there is a little bit of a decision-making going on with young families deciding whether to have children or not, because usually there is a little bit of that stigma of, well, you know, your career has to be paused and your dreams have to be paused as a young mom to be able to take care of all of that. And you're living proof that that's actually not necessarily all the case, right? So fantastic story. Thank you for sharing that with us.
Thank you.
As you said, you had a very strong vision and you also had a determination. You said, I'm not leaving this university without that final paper. And obviously you've done it, and a lot more than just that. Now, there is a special kind of mindset that one needs to go through those life decisions and sacrifices and challenges. And I know that over the last few years, you have grown your company, your business organically. You said you've tripled it in size, actually. And I know that by now your children are grown up and you have a grandchild already, which is fantastic, right? So I guess being able to spend a bit more time in business was probably crucial to grow the business. But still, I'm very, very curious to hear, you know, a successful individual like yourself, especially a woman in business, probably has to have certain habits, certain routines, certain standards and values for herself and for the team. So as you were growing your business, and as you still are, what are some of those tips or personal standards that you can share with our audience to inspire us even further?
Right, some personal standards. So I think my standard is excellence. The name of my business is actually Best Practice Law, and that name in itself sets a really high standard. And in business, I'm always looking for ways we can be the best we could possibly be and do the best work we can possibly do and get the best outcomes for our client. So my standards are excellence. Excellence doesn't necessarily mean we are always right and we do everything perfect. We make mistakes along the way and we learn from those and we grow from it. And I think part of my standards are rubbing off on my staff, because to strive for excellence, you have to understand that there's going to be, you know, hiccups along the way, and you've just got to roll with it and learn from it. So next time you know how to avoid it or do something differently to get an even better result. So my standard is probably excellence. And another one of my standards is, in business, you've got to have fun. And it sounds strange that that's a standard. And to be honest, that's probably a value, but I'm all about having fun, having excellent fun, which sounds kind of unusual. I think that comes across in the work that I do. It comes across in the kind of clients that I attract, and it comes across in the feedback that I get, because, you know, anyone can do mechanical, technical, legal stuff, and I have a different standard. So my standard is excellence all around, excellent personality, excellent service, excellent problem solving, excellent everything we possibly can do. And what I might have considered to be excellent when I first started my career is probably quite different now, because over the years you go through trials and error and you just figure it out.
Well, talking about excellence and talking about making mistakes, as you're striving towards excellence, there are things that don't go your way as well.
Yes.
And I would love to hear, how do you deal with those situations?
Yes, so when something doesn't go my way, I have learnt to just roll with it. And I think that has a lot to do with my own self-development, getting rid of my own ego, and just knowing that we're all human. You know, every day things aren't going to go your way, but it's not the thing that didn't go your way that defines you, it's how you deal with it. And, you know, in my office, I am commonly heard saying, and my staff now say it back to me, when something happens and it's not ideal, instead of pointing the finger or jumping up and down and saying that was wrong or that wasn't right or that wasn't ideal, my catchphrase is, what is the learning we take from this? And I often hear my team quoting that back to me, which is gorgeous. Sometimes they'll say, Trish, I've done such and such. I could have done it a better way. The learning I'm taking from this is, and they'll give me an example. And I just kind of sit there and think, my job is done. I don't need to tell you off for doing something, you know, perhaps not as great as you could. You've recognized that you've done it in a certain way and it should have been done differently. But most importantly, you've owned it and you've come back to me and said, this is the learning I could have done from it and this is what I could do next time. So I think that's how I deal with it.
Fantastic.
Always looking for the lesson. What's the lesson and how can we do things better?
Yeah, yeah. And as we're talking about your team, I guess there's quite a bit of work that goes into motivating staff, to making sure that everyone's on point, that you're all going in the same direction, following a certain vision of the business. What would you say your tips would be to motivate your staff or to help them grow, especially now over the last 6 months when the world was tested and a lot of businesses with it?
Yes, I think the tips I would say for motivating the team and helping them grow is actually recognizing that they're people. That sounds really basic and it probably sounds a bit like, yeah, well, duh, Trish, of course they're people. But recognizing outside of work, they're people and they show up on a daily basis and they try their absolute best and they give 110%. But they are people and they've got stuff going on in their lives. And so I have to recognize that. And I think when I'm looking at motivating the team, what I like to know is what's going on in their lives and what can I bring to the table to maybe help them deal with stuff outside of what I see from 9 to 5 in the office. And that's kind of my attitude towards life and my attitude towards just helping my clients. I'm always looking at what is the big picture. And you're presenting today with this issue and you might need help to grow in this area, but what else is going on? Because if I know what else is going on, then I can kind of help them. I'm also encouraging them to tell me where they need help and what I can do to make them a better person and what tools or what professional development do they need or what do they need from me to be the best that they can be in my business and in life. And I think that's really useful. I think that's quite powerful and it empowers them as well because they know I'll help them if I can.
You're a very motivational leader. And I wonder, where do you take that from? Because every leader learns, grows, and your approach to life is of massive growth. So if you would just share with us, who have been some of your mentors, coaches, role models as you were on your way of building a business and creating a life that you've created?
So here's the thing. When I look back over my career path and my journey, my mentors are so varied. I mean, one of them is Oprah Winfrey, for goodness sake, which sounds really random, but I remember thinking, look at this phenomenal lady, look at the story she had and look at what she's created. So she was a role model. I look at my gorgeous, gorgeous husband, and he is a massive role model for me. I mean, he always worked in business. I trained as a lawyer. I didn't train as a business person. I'm learning every day. And he trained in management and in business. So he was a massive role model for me. You know, my current absolute favorite role model at the moment is Tony Robbins. And I've done a lot of his courses. I've been around the world going to courses, and I've loved it. And I love his attitude. And I kind of come away from his courses, and after watching maybe his podcasts or reading his books, thinking, do the best you can. The secret to living is giving, to steal his phrase. And each one teach one. When you learn something, teach someone else and pull everyone through the door of life, of success. You know, if you can, just help them. So I've had heaps of role models and mentors. I am the second youngest of 10 children. There are 9 of us left. I had a sister who passed away as a baby. And all of my siblings, my elder siblings and my younger sister, they're all role models. And, you know, I've just got role models everywhere. And I think I am a role model to some people, probably to my children. But my kids are even my role models. I mean, every day my kids are teaching me, and I look at them and I think, this is just fantastic. So I've got heaps, you know, I've got fellow lawyers who have gone before me. And, you know, Tony Robbins talks about, if you want to be an Olympic gold medalist, find one, you know, mirror what they do, and you can receive the same results. And so I've kind of done that in my career as well. If I've wanted something, I've looked for people who have done something similar, maybe not exactly the same. And I thought, what do you do? And I get to know them and say, how did you do that? And I'm not shy to put my hand up and reach out to people and build networks and ask people how they do things. I have a personal business coach named Heather, and she's a mentor at the moment, but I've got heaps of role models, and I think that's possibly why I've managed to achieve the success I have, because I'm not pigeonholed into just having one person I follow. I take little bits and pieces of all the good stuff from everyone that I meet and all my role models, and I try and apply it. Wayne Dyer was also one of my massive role models, and he comes with like a whole different flavor. He's more of a spiritual role model, I suppose. And, you know, he's not with us anymore, but my husband and I had the good fortune of going to an evening with Wayne Dyer. It was the last one he presented before he passed away. And I remember walking away from that, and one of the catchphrases he used, it wasn't a catchphrase, but it comes from the book, The Tao Te Ching, and it was, life is as it should be. And I remember coming away from that Wayne Dyer talk thinking, okay, whatever is going on in life, this is how it should be in this moment, and it's going to lead me to something in the future. So I have a really diverse range of role models, and I think that's why I'm where I am today, and I think that's why I'm possibly a bit different to some of my peers.
That's a great answer. And what a wealth of knowledge and growth, learning from other people. And like you said, sharing your knowledge and passing it on to others around you. Now, you know, Winston Churchill said that a good crisis is a shame to waste, right? So in the last 6 months, I do know that you've been pivoting and changing your approach and looking at your business model and looking at how do you grow as a business and as a business leader from this point, right? And I would love if you could share with us a few things that you have planned and you're working on, or you are envisioning for the business moving forward.
So this COVID-19 pandemic that we've all been facing, it brought with it some exciting challenges and some really scary times. And what dawned on me when they just told us that the country was going to shut down in 2 days, what dawned on me was, I've got a business to run. I've got staff that I've got to, you know, pay their wages to so that they can pay their mortgages. And I need to be able to continue thriving in business so that I can keep carrying my team, and so that they can keep, you know, keeping up with their financial obligations. And so it was a little bit daunting, but I have 2 law practices in 2 different towns. And about a year or so ago, I decided everything needed to be in the cloud so that the 2 offices could talk to each other and it would be seamless. If something came out of one office, it could have come out of the other because it was seamless. And so I had the very good fortune of being absolutely prepared for COVID, in that when we got told the country's shutting down and you cannot work from your offices, we literally all just picked up our laptops and we picked up our phones, we unplugged them from the wall. We've got internet phones, and we all went to our homes, and then we just plugged our laptops in, we plugged our phones into our modems, and the office just kept running. Everything's in the cloud, so we were able to access our systems, and that was awesome. We did Zooms every single day, and we made sure that we were keeping each other accountable and keeping each other upbeat, if you will, because it was very isolating to be alone. We would meet with clients via Zoom, or we would have telephone calls with them. But it was quite interesting because the nature of my job, a lot of it is done behind the scenes, but a lot of it you need to be hands-on. And so it made me realize, to use, the word pivot, which is very overused during this crisis, it made me realize I need to pivot and I need to be agile and be able to move quickly. So as a result, I signed up to do some online training. I'm looking at being able to offer more options to people online. I've got a big focus on that at the moment. So in the background, I'm frantically working with that. I'm looking at working with perhaps virtual assistants as well as my staff that I have sitting in the bricks and mortar offices that we have. And I'm looking at other avenues of income stream. And I feel very confident. I felt very confident during the country's shutdown that we were going to be fine because we were able to continue trading. It was like nothing was different, apart from the fact we didn't physically see each other. We would have the Zoom meetings and everyone's faces would pop up on the screen like the Brady Bunch, and sometimes we would have the Brady Bunch music playing and everyone would have a giggle. But it made me realize you've got to be really flexible and you've got to be agile in business, because what works today might not work if the world changes. And to quote my first boss as a lawyer, he used to say to me, Trish, the world changes every 5 minutes. And if you don't keep up, you're going to get left behind. And he was an awesome old dude. He was near retirement. And he used to say to me, you have to understand about the internet and emails and stuff like that, which to me was hilarious because they were the norm. But he was telling me, keep up or get left behind. And I tell you what, never a truer word has been spoken. He was exactly right. I've carried that through my practice, through my career, and that really came to the forefront with COVID. If you don't keep up and if you don't keep ahead of the wave, and if you don't think of ways you can provide a service to your people who need you that's not conventional, you're going to get left behind. I heard some stories about law practices that just shut their door for the 2 months or whatever it was that we were closed. And I thought, that's not really doing our people a service, because they need us. They're going through crazy times. The industry I'm in, when things go wrong, people need legal advisors to help them fix it. So we need to be available, and we don't physically need to be there to shake their hand, but we need to be available like we're doing now through a computer screen. We need to keep up. So that was a big deal for me. The pivoting, creating some new revenue streams, and just really looking after the team. That was a big deal. And I came out of COVID and I thought, I really learned a lot about myself, and I really learned a lot about the people around me and what's important to me. And having people around is a huge, huge big deal. I need people because otherwise life's so boring. So hopefully that answers your question in a roundabout way.
It absolutely does. And I guess just now you've mentioned that you've learned so much over this crisis, over the lockdown, over needing to change the way you do things. what would you say? Well, let's fast track you now. And when your grandchildren are a little bit older and you speak to them about this time that's happening in the world right now, what would you say the 3 or 2 biggest lessons, gifts that you have taken out of the situation as a business owner, as a woman in business?
Right. So I think the biggest lessons are always be prepared to be flexible, because there's not just one right way of doing something. And even if you do something a bit out of the box, be flexible, because just because no one else has done it that way doesn't mean it's not right. That's the beauty of being a pioneer, I suppose, and having unprecedented times. And I think the other thing I would tell my grandson about would be, look after your people. I mean, we're all about people. It's so important. I found week 1 of lockdown, I was like, I've got this, and this is great. I'm going to be the cheerleader, and I'm going to make sure that every morning I have a Zoom. We have a huddle every day, which we do anyway. We're going to see what everyone's working on. Are they stuck on anything? And we're going to talk about the wins from the day before. We're going to keep that morale going. We're going to do a quiz so that we've all got something to talk about. And to me, it was my way of just connecting with everyone. And it was interesting, because what I found was, when we actually went back to the office and I didn't have to make the effort of, for example, doing the quiz or whatever, everyone missed it. And so when I look back, I think, just remember how important your people are, because when they're not there, it's a huge, big deal. And I learned for myself, like how plants need the sun and water, I need sun and water, but I need people around me. And my staff would often hassle me and say, Trish, you're so annoying. You ring us up and you just distract us from doing our work, and you tell us jokes, or, you're distracting me. Go away, you're bored. And I realized I need to have people around me. I need to have that interaction. And, they would hassle me and would have a giggle, but I think secretly they love it. I think they need it too.
I bet they do. Well, that was just a gorgeous share. Thank you so much for our conversation today. Before we say goodbye, I would love to ask, as you said, you love fun, you love humor, you love to make things interesting and exciting. And so what would be one fun fact that maybe a lot of people don't know about you, but they really should?
Oh, a fun fact. I don't even know a fun fact. I suppose it's that I'm always looking for mischief. I work in a very serious profession, and I can do the serious job, but I'm always looking for mischief, and I've got a pretty crazy sense of humor, and I'm always trying to inject humor into maybe sometimes serious, dark times. So that's probably a fun fact, that I'm always up for a giggle, and if you've got a joke to share, ring me up and share it. Or when we meet, you're going to expect to meet, I don't know, some very boring suit, and that is not what you're going to get when you talk to me. I mean, I've been known to break the ice in the most unusual ways. It might be that I just use someone's name in a fun way. It might rhyme with something, and I might say to them, oh, your name is such and such, and that rhymes with such and such, and I'm always going to remember you because of it. And they kind of look at me and shake their head and scratch their head, and then they kind of have a smile, because it's just not what you'd expect. So maybe that I've got a sense of humour, I'm a bit quirky, and I took a different road in my business and even in my academic career, and expect the unexpected, perhaps. Maybe that's what it is.
I love it. Thank you. Now, just before we let you go, one final question for you, Trish.
Yes.
There's a lot of women out there listening right now, and a lot of men. And like you said, on your journey to where you are today, you were surrounded, and still are, by some amazing people. Like you said, your husband has been a huge support, your sister, your family, everyone that you are surrounded by. Now, what would be one advice, one tip, or something that you would say to women in business just starting out today, in today's world, what would be your hot tip for advice for them?
My hot tip would be just believe in yourself. And if somebody tells you you can't do something, prove them wrong. And you've got this, and you're exactly where you're meant to be. And life is as it should be. If you decide you're going to do something, do it because you've got it. And the only thing holding you back is yourself. You know, there'll be lots of naysayers. I had lots of naysayers at the start of my career that said, you won't be able to do the degree, you've got kids, you've got no business being there, you won't be able to run your own business, you don't have any experience. All of that was true. But I decided I was going to prove them wrong. So what I would say to you, fabulous woman, is just do it. Prove them wrong, because success feels really good. And it feels really good to do it on your own terms. And at the end of it, I mean, if it works out, that's great. If it doesn't, you're going to learn along the way. And you're going to have a great story to tell anyway. So just do it.
Oh, beautiful. Beautiful closing words. I think there's nothing more to add to that. Thank you so much, Trish, for sharing yourself with us, for sharing your experience, your life wisdom. I think we've all learned so much, and I really appreciate your time. Now, where can our audience find you if they have any more questions for you, or if they just want to follow you and follow what you do?
Oh my goodness. Just email me, I suppose. I mean, you could find me at work. And so my website is www.bestlaw.co.nz. You could send me an email at work, trish@bestlaw.co.nz, or go on the net and just ring me, because I love to talk to people and I'd love to hear from you. Cool.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Trish. I hope to have you back on our show soon. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Now, if you like this video, give it a like and share it with your friends. And if you want to be notified every time we post new content, then make sure that you hit that subscribe button and that bell next to it. It's totally free. Now, if you want to learn more about leadership and performance hacks, make sure you watch our previous videos. You can watch them on YouTube, or you can subscribe to our High Achievers Quest podcast. Thanks for tuning in.